Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. As always, likes, comments, and subs are greatly appreciated. Now, a couple days ago, I had an unboxing video with the ZOOM R20 multi-track recorder, and I went through some of the initial features that the ZOOM R20 has to offer with its touchscreen and its DAW-like capabilities that they have with that touchscreen. So we went through a quick record and then how to manipulate some of the tracks with copying and pasting with the touchscreen. I wanted to have a more focused video today on just looking at the rhythm features that are built in to the ZOOM R20. Now, what I'll show you here in this video, everything is within the R20 box itself. There's nothing that's contained on the SD card at this point. So when you turn on the Zoom, you are given this initial home screen, and you can either open up a project that you've been working on, you could start a new project, or we can go to templates up at the top here, and you're given a couple different choices that you can pick from to start a project with a predetermined set of drum loops and rhythm patterns that are already built in. So if we hit rock and hit create, just as an example, takes a couple seconds to load, it will create a project for us, and it'll take two of the tracks, turn it into a stereo track, and lay out a series of rock loops for a rhythm section. And that's what you see here. So on tracks 5 and 6, there is a rhythm loop already in place for us. And it does vary a little bit as the song goes on. So you have a bunch of these to kind of pick from as a starting template. For us, let's go back to projects, and instead of picking a template, we'll go to projects, and what I'm just going to do is open up an existing project that I have, but it's just a blank project. There's nothing on there. So we'll open up this project, and we can do a couple things initially. So if you go to settings up here by clicking the little gear icon at the top, the first thing that you may want to alter is the tempo and the time signature. For the tempo, you can just use the slider, or you can hit these plus and minus buttons for yourself. We'll just set it to 100 beats per minute. For time signature, though, you only have three choices, at least on version 1.0, and this is something that I hope Zoom will address. So you have 3/4 time, you have 4/4 time, and you have 6/8 time. I find it a little bit odd that you don't see, say, a 3/8 time or a 2/4 time, maybe a 5/4 time there, especially if you're a jazz musician, but those are not available. You only have those three time signatures to choose from. It's really not that big of a deal other than kind of setting up the way that your metronome may work. And if you do want to use the rhythm features and the rhythm loops that are built in, that's where you're going to come into some conflicts here. Depending on what the time signature is and whether or not you have something else in mind other than those three time signatures. You can choose a couple different sounds for your click track and how you want it to output maybe a little bit differently. If you're running monitors versus running headphones, you can set what that looks like. So we have our set for 100 BPM, and we would like to create maybe a rhythm track for ourselves using the Zoom's built-in rhythm loops that are available to you. So what you can do is you could just choose whichever track you want to have act as your rhythm track. I'll just go ahead and put it on track 1, and then you hit the drum icon at the top here, and what you'll notice is that one stereo links to track 2. So you wind up with a stereo linked track there. For your rhythm section, you could see it's outlined there with that drum icon linked to tracks 1 and 2. In order to get your loops going, you hit this little drawer file icon, and you can see all the different loops that are available to you and scroll through. So as I scroll through a little bit here to show you some of these, you may notice that they're kind of outlined with a little bit of a title there. You know, it's retro rock or hard rock, and then you're given a couple subsets of loops within that main title. So for retro rock, you have intro, verse, bridge, chorus, and outro. And this is pretty common for pretty much, I think, all of the loops that are provided to you as the stock loops built into the R20. You can preview any of those loops by hitting the play button, So you get the quick preview of what that loop looks like, and then you can drop it into the track by hitting the plus icon. And there we go. So it dropped in our first loop. We can play that. Okay. If you want to expand on this, so we could bring the timeline back, but if you want to expand on that, you can simply select the track by tapping it once. You're given this little tab icon on the side, and then you can just drag it for as long as you want. So if we want to drag out our intro to be 4 bars here, we can do that. So it adds like a copy and paste right there and keeps the loop going. Additionally, you can use the timeline marker here and the forward and reverse buttons to kind of set your timeline, line it up right there, and if we want, we can add a marker by using the flag icon at the top here, hit add, and then it says intro. We can tap that. We'll keep it as intro, but you can type in whatever you want and you can label your markers, so this way you can start to build up your song loop by loop or pattern by pattern if you want, and keep your markers in place, and there's a little tiny label up at the top so you know where you're at as you navigate through the DAW and your timeline starts to get a lot longer. If you'd like to add in a new loop, you can do that by, again, going to that file folder. We use the retro rock intro, I believe, so we can go to the verse and then drop in a verse loop. And every time you do it, it does take a second because it is loading essentially a WAV file in place. And so that will pick up and we can hear the difference from the intro into the verse. And it's a very easy way to build up a rhythm track for yourself. So this way you could start to lay down other types of melodies that you might have in your head, you know, on the other tracks. So again, you can place this anywhere you want. It doesn't have to be on tracks 1 and 2, but it gives you an idea how easy it is to build up a rhythm track using the stock loops that are in the R20. And again, that's not on the SD card, that is in the internal memory of the R20. So that's something that maybe could change with firmware updates. There could be more loops that are given to you, but I want to say that there's 30 loops. They each have 5 subcomponents to it, so you're looking at about 150 loops to choose from, which isn't a bad offering to get your rhythm tracks going. What you don't have, though, is like a true drum kit that you can use for the drum track. So if you just want to like do some kind of finger drumming, that's not available to you. That's not something that's built in for the rhythm section. For the rhythm section here with that stereo linked rhythm track, all you can use are loops that are put in. If you do want to use a sort of a kit and lay down your own drum pattern by trying to finger drum, you do have an option for you. So if we go to like track 5, we can hit track 5 and we can go to the synth settings. So set up track 5 as a synth track. So we go to the piano icon at the top, click that. We note that track 5 has now been set up as our synth track. We can hit record on track 5 that we want to use that, and then hit the file folder. Let's just bring our timeline back. And you'll notice too, as you can scroll the timeline, but after you set up a marker, if you hit and it's stopped, you hit the stop button, your timeline marker will go back to the next or the closest marker, and then from there it'll keep going back until you get to the beginning of your song. So with our synth track selected, we can go to the file folder again, and number 19 is a drum kit. We can click the piano icon there on the side, and you can finger drum in some patterns. Now the problem with this is that you won't be able to use the touch screen to actually record something. If you wanted to try to record something using the synth settings, you could use the drum kit. However, in order to be able to record, you're going to need a MIDI controller that's plugged into the USB-C port on the side of the Zoom R20, because if you do try to record the synth track, even though we have it armed there, and hit the record button, you'll get an error message that says you do not have a MIDI keyboard. The MIDI keyboards do work. I tested it out, so I'm going to post that in the next video when I go over some of the settings for the synth track. But for here, I just wanted to give a little quick video on how you use the rhythm track to set up all these drum loops that are built into the R20. Now, it is a very limited feature. You can only use those built-in loops at this point in time. You could always drop in your own WAV files. So if you have your own loops that you'd like to use, you could drop in your own WAV files, load them into, track 4 or something like that, and then use that as your rhythm track. But in terms of being able to work with the built-in stuff, kind of what you see here is what you get. So for anybody that is, a solo guitar musician, songwriter, you're just looking to put something down that you can play along with a little bit, and you'll go back and you'll fix the rhythm track later. This is very easy to work with. You could see here where you could just drop in a couple loops. You just simply click it and drag it along. This sets up a copy and paste over and over and over again. So you can fill up your timeline for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, and then flesh out the ideas for your song pretty easily, especially if you're just working with 3 different styles of loops. You could have an intro, a verse, and a chorus. Just go back and forth until you come up with a song that you actually like. So for that purpose and for that function, I think it performs really well. But again, that is pretty limited. You're not able to sequence anything in here. Whereas if you had the older Zoom R8 or the Zoom R24, those things do have built-in sequencers. So you could put in a drum kit and then sequence your drum kit in a stepwise fashion. That does not exist here on the R20. The R20 is going to work with its touchscreen with really WAV files, and copy and paste those WAV files to build up a rhythm track. So for better or worse, you have that great functionality that's easy to use, but it is going to be limited for some people because you can't sequence anything if you were looking for something along those lines. So with that, I think I'll stop the video here. I just wanted to give an overview of the rhythm features that are found in the Zoom R20, and I do look forward to posting a couple other videos in the future. I think up next I'll be focused on the synth track, and I'll show you how you can hook up a MIDI controller to that. I've even hooked up an OPZ to the synth track, and it works pretty well. So, as always, likes, comments, and subs are greatly appreciated. Thanks for watching.